From chaos to opportunity. I'm so thrilled to have Kadeem Leslie here to tell us all about his experience and how you can actually look for that opportunity amidst the chaos. Welcome, Kadeem. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Sabrina. It's fantastic to be here. Hi, everyone. How you doing?
Your story intrigued me. It's fascinating, and I'm going to do it a big injustice if I try to say it myself. So I'm going to invite you to share with our listeners and our watchers all about you and how you came to find that opportunity amidst the chaos.
Absolutely. So I'll go back. So there's actually two stories in my life, but I'll tell the second one because it happened more recently, right? And a lot more related to where I am right now. So there I was, uh, moved to college, new state, didn't know anybody, and I had gotten the opportunity to stay in, a single family home, which was fantastic. I was staying in a bedroom, typical college arrangement, cool. And then, when I got there, of course, I was 17 years old. I wasn't thinking about everything. I got there, realized I had no money to pay rent, right? So there I was, I had, enough for perhaps a couple of train tickets, but I didn't really have that much money. And so that was the first time in college that I was, probably thinking to myself, I don't know how this is going to work out. This is my first maybe month, couple weeks, and I have 4 years of this, and I have no idea. So what happened was I moved in, knew the landlord, got to know the landlord really well, and then during that first month there, we had a conversation. Hey, is there any possibility that you would know how I would be able to afford rent? So then we're at a dining table one day, and then, I confess, I actually don't have any real idea of how I'm going to pay rent in the next maybe 2 months. I don't know. Because right now, I have a job on campus, I'm applying for stuff, but even if I put that all together, I don't think it's going to be enough. And she said, I have some friends who can help you. So, I started carpet cleaning, painting walls, and eventually the idea came to me. I don't think I can afford my room, but I don't need to be on the street. So why don't I move out of my room and sleep on the couch of, well, the same house? And I pitched it to the landlord and said that, that's not a bad idea. If you want to do that, if you want to manage it yourself, I'll let you do that. And I admire your hustle and you can figure it out. So I said, all right, no problem. All I need is a go ahead. All I need is one yes. I'm going for it. Right. So then what I decided to do was that I moved onto the couch, decided to put that room up. Everybody knows Airbnb, VRBO, those things, right? So the first one was Airbnb. I put that room on Airbnb and I was sleeping on the couch. My first guest, I remember she was a wonderful person. Her name was Jennifer, right? She was sleeping in my bed. She was visiting the city. I'll never forget Jennifer because I mean, after just moving to thousands of clients, she was the very first person that and I remember that first person, they got all my attention. I wanted to make sure that they were a-okay. I was talking to them like day and night. Is like, are you okay? Are you okay? Just trying to pay my rent. And when they left, I moved from there. After a couple of weeks, my landlord saw, hey, you're actually doing a pretty good job. Why don't you take a second bedroom? And I said, yeah, yeah, of course. So then it actually happened. The first month I was able to meet my rent. By the third month, that December, I was actually doubling what my rent was for one room. That's how good this was going. Then moving from the couch, remember I'm still on the couch, right? So I'm still on the couch, December, right? It's Christmas, it's winter Christmas outside. This is New York, New Jersey. And I got the second bedroom. And now I'm still sleeping on the couch managing. People are seeing me. Hey, this is actually the person that we're renting from. He's sleeping on the couch. I'm thinking, hey, it's actually cheaper for me to stay on the couch because now I'm actually earning money staying at home. So I said to my landlord, hey, you know, by this time we have a different type of relationship because it's no longer, the broke college student that came because now sort of acting like a property manager. I have two bedrooms in the home. And I said, why don't, this is a 5 bedroom house. Why don't you give me the other 2 bedrooms? Right? Because I think if I sleep on the couch, You downsize what you have, move into one room. I can perhaps pay your entire mortgage. And I think I could. So she said, you know what? It's going to take a couple weeks, but let's do it. By March, third bedroom came. By the end of that first school year, I had four bedrooms. No, I kid you not. Not only am I paying the mortgage for this property, now I'm earning a, a good chunk of change for myself, a couple $1,000 is what I'm earning for myself, plus paying the mortgage. That's my first year of college. Now, you can imagine I'm sitting there thinking, as a student, I'm making money and I'm staying at home, right? I'm probably making close to what some of my professors, especially if you're an adjunct professor, you know how hard it is to be an adjunct professor, because I was at one point, you get perhaps $3,000, $4,000 for an entire class for a semester. That's not that great, right? So then you have to take on, of course, five, six classes if you're an adjunct professor. And even $4,000 for a class for the entire semester. That's on the high end, right?
Wow.
So then I'm earning that at home, right? And I'm in college and I'm learning from these professors. So then now I start to see money
Mhm.
very differently, because I think to myself, okay, this is one place. If I can have a system that does this repeatedly, can I get other people to do this? Now, of course, it didn't just happen. What actually happened was I got the four bedrooms. I was managing this property so well that she told her friends, hey, this kid knows something. I don't know what's going on, but he's paying my mortgage. And I know that you don't like your mortgage, so I think you should talk to him. So then I got
Wow.
my first, other property. So I was now managing two properties and then four, and it started to grow because I was doing so well. As I said, this was coming from moving onto my couch, and this was my one chance. So it's getting all my attention. As I said, just like that first guest, it was a situation where if that guest called me at 2 o'clock in the morning, I was there because this was my one shot. So moving from the couch, getting multiple places, then eventually moving out of state, then moving out of country, all from managing one bedroom. And I think that's a really cool story that I like to tell. And, that's, I suppose, yada, 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 to where we are now. But that's a really, you know, that story means a lot to me. So,
Fascinating. Thank you for sharing. What a story. What I hear is the drive that you had, but more importantly, it was like you had to figure it out. You had no choice.
no
You were at a
choice.
point where it was like, I got to make something work. And you put your whole self into it and you made it happen, which is
Right.
so admirable. But I'd love to
Absolutely.
discuss mindset when it comes to that, because obviously it's a mindset podcast. So we
Of
got to
course.
touch on it a bit. But I would imagine that mindset played a huge role for you in the entire journey. And I'm just curious to know in the beginning, when you first of all had the idea and didn't know if it was going to work out because you're like, I got to try something. We're just going to go for it. What was your mindset around that? What was your thinking?
Absolutely. So, at that point, I would like to imagine I was so much more motivated than I am now, because it was a different level of motivation. I'm not saying I'm not motivated now, but it was just a different level. I was eat, sleep, breathing motivational, podcasts and YouTube, and it was just everything at the moment. And so I remember succinctly there are two things that happened to me. One, there's a quote that stuck with me that said, you have to want success as much as you want to breathe oxygen if your head were being held underwater.
Wow,
Now, I
that's
don't know about you, but if your head is being held underwater with every single fiber of your being, that's how much you're going to fight. And you wouldn't stop at 10 p.m. because it's a Friday afternoon. No, that doesn't make sense. No,
yeah.
you wouldn't, there's nothing that matters but getting oxygen. Just picture, vividly picture that. And that's how bad you have to want it because it keeps you up. It wakes you up at nighttime. It doesn't make you want to sleep, doesn't make you want to talk to friends, doesn't make you want to go out to parties. That's all you want to do because that's how bad you want oxygen. So that was the first quote that stuck with me. The second, let me see if I can remember. It was just there and it just went away. Sometimes the brain does that. But
Absolutely. If it comes back, let us know.
I think he will come back. And you know it's going to come back? He's going to come back in the middle of something that you're about to say. But go
Yeah.
ahead.
You can interrupt me in that
Oh
case.
my
Feel
goodness.
free. Yeah. I just wanted to touch on what you just said. I mean, just the visual that you depicted for us is so powerful. And I can only
Right.
imagine having that kind of motivation of like, I need oxygen to survive. Like, and I need this plan to survive. I need to stay motivated to be able
Right.
to do what I need to do. And for you, you didn't have a plan, but you had an idea. Would that be correct to assume
Of
at the
course.
time?
And funny enough, I remembered what the second thing was.
Great. Yes, let's
It,
talk
it
about it.
was an idea, and it's
Yeah.
exactly touching on what you just said, the idea, right? So the
Mhm.
question, which is a very motivational question. So two things that stuck with me constantly. The second was a question I asked myself. It started out every day, but then it happened pretty much several times a day whenever I found myself stuck. And the question is, remember why you're here. Remember why you're here. Because I think, of course, some of the listeners may have gone to college, some may have not, but you remember probably being in a situation where you were new and it was a new thing and it was shiny and you actually saw people getting distracted. Think of a sports team. You finally made the sports team and you're going for the championship and for the first time you get on the bus with the championship team and you're all going to a new city and everybody's like, "Oh, look at the mountains, look at the," right? But that's not why you're there. There's a quote by
Good point.
Colby that says you just like he just got back from like a loss and he was now tied and everybody was like, "Aren't you happy?" And he was like, "No, we haven't won the championship yet." It was like a 7 game series, right?
Right.
And they just came back. They were down. They won back to back to back. And he was like, "Why aren't you celebrating? Why aren't you happy?" Because we haven't won yet. That's why. And so the question was, remember why you're here. So I would eat
Mhm.
lunch. I would see friends talking about the party that was happening, and I would, in the back of my mind, remember why you're here. Remember why you're here. Remember why you're here. And then just asking that question really snap you back into the priority is not to necessarily have fun. No, the priority is to have a life that you just consider to be fun every day.
Mhm.
And that takes time to build. It's to have a life where you wake up every morning just happy to do whatever you're doing.
Mhm.
And so I was focused on that, not trying to escape what I was doing on the weekends, which I think a lot of people do.
Absolutely. A lot of people work for the weekends,
Right.
right? They're looking forward to the weekends, and then during the week, it's like they're not even living. And the weekends are their
Absolutely.
time to come out of their shell. But I love the idea of building a life for yourself where you don't have to escape, where your every day is what you're choosing and what you're excited about. What I talk about often on this podcast is a bit about my journey of burnout because I reached a point where I was waking up in the morning and not wanting to go to work, or like
Absolutely.
thinking of excuses for how I can call in sick. And that's
Right.
when like when you're trying to think of excuses to get out of life, that's when you know that a change is necessary. And
Absolutely.
because we're here for one life. We only have
Right.
one, and we need to
You get
make
one shot.
you get
And
one shot.
there's another mindset hack that I will share because I think this is very powerful. And I think it's perhaps the most powerful mindset hack that I think separates people who are the producers of the world, the people who create the flow, right? No pun intended.
Mhm.
The people who are not drifting, but deciding which path the water flows. It's very powerful. And what it is it's a lack of shame. It's a lack of shame. Because let's go back to school, right? Now, remember when there was someone who got like 100%, this is how the teacher handed you the paper, right? Let's say this pen is the paper, right? Paper is on top, the grade showing. That's how
Mhm.
the teacher hands you. Now, but if you got a 40%, this is how the teacher,
Yeah, it's true.
right? It's folded, right?
It's hidden. Yes.
It might as well be a ball,
Yeah.
right? But what we learned then was that there was some shame in failure.
Yeah.
But I want you to look at the people at the top. They fail often. They make, okay, Mark Zuckerberg, let's take one example, right? I'm not sure if you remember what was happening in 2022, 2023, 2021 with the Facebook. He was trying to push artificial intelligence or like a meta space, metaverse, right? And he failed at that. That's that's millions of dollars. But he failed. Now, Meta, the stock alone is up more than most technology companies just this year. But he failed publicly. And they do this often, often. Gucci releases something that doesn't go well, right? Mercedes releases a car they have to take back. Everyone does that. But for some reason, we like to say, hey, you know, you take this failure and hide it. No, it's actually the opposite. You need to fail harder, faster, and stronger. And you need to do it sooner so that you can get to the learning faster. So then if I were to do it over, I would just do everything I was doing faster and just make the mistakes faster. Because the sooner that you make the mistake, the quicker that you get to find out, okay, there's 1,000 things I've done, 1,000 things didn't work. Now you don't need to go and learn that in 10 years, that these 1,000 things didn't work. Now, when you start something, again, you're not doing these 1,000 things. So you're moving on closer to something that's, oh, I know these 1,000 things didn't work, but what if I pulled lesson 500 from over here, combined it with lesson 759, combined it with lesson six? Could that be something new?
Yeah.
And that's how you create real change because you have all this knowledge. Man, also, the sooner that you figure out that one thing, the faster you get to enjoy it. Would you rather figure out that one thing when you're 75 or when you're 30? Then
Mhm.
hurry up and get to that one thing. But you need the failure to compound. And so it has to happen fast. And
Mhm.
so in college, what allowed me to fail often, right, is because I didn't have any friends in college, And the reason why I didn't have any friends is that I used to say that this is, it's not the best saying, but I used to say that friends are expensive. I used to say it publicly to other people. No, I don't necessarily believe that now. But for when I was in college, first year, that was that was how I thought about friends. And I didn't realize I wasn't only talking about money. And they
Mhm.
can be expensive. And let me explain why. Because if you're not surrounded with the right people, you can get so far off course. All right, let me explain it to you this way. Let me explain it to you this way. Because this is I love this exercise, right? Friends are expensive not because their most expensive cost isn't the things that they do with you. It's the things that you could have done with a different set of friends. And that cost that you don't see is costing you millions of dollars. Not the bear on the weekend, that's just 50. The other set of friends that would help you to get to millions, that's expensive. But I didn't know that then. I know that now.
Mhm. Mhm.
But that's what I mean by friends are expensive. And so you're not looking for friends who are going to gossip with you. You're not
Mhm.
looking for people who are, only going to talk about situations in the world that they cannot change. Yes, it's good to discuss big ideas, but how are we going to actively do something? Can I do something this week, by the end of the year, by the end of 2026, that can affect change in the world? And that's the type of friends I want to keep. And so what happens? Why is it that you have people get to, very high levels of success, lose it all, go bankrupt, and then go back to a level of success within a few years? But you have people trying for decades and can't do the same thing. Why? It's because of environment. It's because of environment and who they are. And so, one, of course, you're working on yourself, you're investing on yourself. But when it comes to your environment, the people around you are going to, okay, I know this person can give me access to capital again. I
Mhm.
know this person can help me to get on this deal. I know the clients that I'm looking for in this environment can afford to pay for $10,000, $50,000, $2 million products. So then that environment changes. But if you're not in that environment, then there's no way that you can get back that quickly. And then if you don't have the skill and you're in that environment, there's no way that you can do it either, right? Because
Makes
we
sense.
see poor people in Beverly Hills, right?
Mhm.
We see it, right? But then we can see someone move from Virginia to Beverly Hills, boom, to the top. Move from Virginia to Miami, boom, to the top, right? We
Mhm.
see it happen all the time. And so I think when you take away that shame from saying, hey, I'm okay with failing in public, and I don't want friends who shame me for trying. I don't want to live a life where the people who I'm scared of their opinion, they want to live normal lives anyway. They are not going the same place I am. They want to stay in Virginia. No offense to Virginia. I realize I said it like three times. Okay, let me switch.
Yeah, yeah.
It's it's North Dakota. Okay.
Okay.
But you understand my point. I love
Of
those two
course.
states. Just made me that clear. Okay.
Yeah, I
But
know.
you understand my point, which is that in certain environments and with certain friends, it's not a conditioning that takes away from what you are trying to create and what you're trying to do. And so learning that then, what I've actively tried to do is not to only work on myself, but to look around in my environment, look at the people, look at how they talk to me, look at what we talk about, the conversations I entertain, to make it easier for me to achieve the things that I want to do instead of having people to stand in my way.
Well said. It is important the people who you surround yourself with. Absolutely. I always think of it from an energetic point of view as well. How your body feels when you're physically with people. Are you inspired? Are you lit up? Or are you drained and
Right.
exhausted? Because
Right.
that takes, in terms of the investment and being expensive, your energy as well is an investment, right? There's value
Right.
there. So if you're being drained by the people that you're around and then you're not able to be inspired to create on your own or to like drive towards your success, then you're definitely losing out in that case. So
Right.
thank you. Well said. So, what
Absolutely.
about the people who are currently in a season of chaos? And I'm using this word because that's the word that you refer to often, but a season of maybe they're lost, they're confused, they are unsure what that plan is, but they know that change is needed. What advice would you give them for that first step that they can take to help themselves move forward?
Okay, so the first thing is that you must have a plan. It doesn't matter where you are right now. I will tell you, and you have to accept that. Because I'm not saying it doesn't suck. I'm not saying you shouldn't cry. I've cried alone in a room several times. I'm a cellist, and so I remember trying to get a full scholarship to college, and I was in the broom closet of my high school. Just me crying. That's how I spent my lunchtime. Not crying, but practicing. And
Okay.
then quite often I'd cry because I wanted to have lunch. I want to spend my lunchtime as a normal teen,
Yeah.
but that wasn't my goal. My goal was to be the best cellist I could be so I could get a scholarship so I can do what I want to do. And that was my
Mhm.
plan, right?
Mhm.
Having a plan, yes, it sucks, but you don't need to create the plan by yourself. Getting a plan is an active process. Involve as many people as you can in your plan. Get people who know you, your personality. Do you think this plan works for me? Do you think I could do this plan? And don't get just your family members because sometimes they're a bit biased and you also don't want to hear their limiting beliefs on your plan,
Good
right? You
point.
don't want that. So you need to consult experts. For example, I like real estate. I'm in real estate, done this for a while. So then what I do is that I talk to people who have over 100 properties. And then
Mhm.
I say, I know that you've been doing this for 2 decades. Here's what I want to do in the next 5 years. Do you think that makes sense? And they'll say, I tried it. The opportunity isn't there right now. Here's what's actually happening right now. And they'll be like, oh, I didn't even know that was a possibility. And that is so valuable because there are things that you don't know that you don't. And only someone in the field could tell you that.
Mhm.
And so that's why you have to actively involve people in your plan. But once you have a solid plan that has 90% plus success rate, right? This is 90% chance I will succeed at this thing because
Mhm.
I've done the research, done the thing, right. And I know all of the variables. I know the ways that this could fail, and I've accounted for all of the ways that this could fail. I need this to go correctly. I can work on that. I can control for this by, for example, sending 500 emails instead of five, right? I can make 1,000 phone calls instead of just 10. I can
Mhm.
send 1,000 applications instead of just 15. And
Mhm.
I can control for those things, right? And once you have that plan and you make the plan as good as you can, just work on the plan. You don't need to focus on step number 20 if you're on step number two. Just focus on step number three
Okay.
because the plan works for itself. Spend time, get the plan. This may take you a few weeks. It's not one afternoon. Don't do that. If your plan takes one afternoon, it's a horrible plan, right?
Yeah.
Businesses that are huge, their plans take perhaps 2, 3 years, right?
Mm.
So then you're not doing that. You just a couple of weeks, maybe a month, right? Sit down, have a plan, talk to people, do research, get the plan fixated and get it done correctly. And once you have a plan, it's 25 steps, just focus on step one. Forget about all the other steps. Just focus on doing step one the best that you can. Then tick step two. And then just focus on doing step two the best that you can. And that's
Mhm.
all that you're doing. And then eventually, by the time that you get to step 12 or to 25, you look back and say, oh, wow, you're not out the chaos yet. That's not what I'm saying. That's not what I'm saying. But you know that the plan will get you here. So you're halfway there. And you know that by the time that you get to step 25, the chaos is done, or at least less, because you've done the work. So then all you're doing is just following those steps. So that's the plan. As I said, I know it sucks. I'm not diminishing that. I've been there. I've cried. I know what that feels like. I want to make that very clear. I'm
Mhm.
not going to diminish what anybody's going through. But I will tell you that you do have a choice to make on whether you get to be a victim for the rest of your life or a survivor and a victor. And at some point, you do have to make that choice. It may take you a couple of years, and that's fine. But remember what I said, that at some point, you do get to make that choice. And the moment that you decide that you're going to be a victor, that's when that plan starts.
So powerful. Yes, thank you. My goodness. So much amazing information that you just shared. I feel like everyone needs to listen to this episode at least twice to take it all in. What I'm hearing though is stay focused, right? Like don't lose your focus. Don't forget why you're doing this. Make sure that plan is solid and that you're just focused on that next step forward. But also the mindset of don't be afraid to fail. Don't be afraid to put yourself out there because if you need to start over, you're starting over from experience and not from scratch. And so what's the next step for you?
Oh, well, you know what's uh, so I've been in real estate for a long time. And so what we decided to do recently was actually to start helping people to get into their own, real estate journey. Because not
Mhm.
only real estate, but I firmly believe in freedom. And I don't think the rest of the freedoms in life come without financial freedom. There's a quote by John Adams that says, I think it's John Adams, that says there are two ways to enslave a nation. One is by debt, the other is by sword. And we know that we have a debt problem. And not
Mhm.
only as a country, but individually, we have debt
Mhm.
problems. And so if you can get free of that, and then move yourself towards a space where you're not worrying about the month to month things, that those things are taken care of. Now you get a chance to look above the water and say, let me actually create an even better plan, a bigger plan. Let me think not just to the end of the week on how I'm going to eat food, but let me think towards the end of the decade. Let me think 3 decades in advance because you can't do that if you're in survivorship mode. And so that's why I take financial freedom so personally. And so helping people to do that, I take it very personal. My goal is to create 10 millionaires and 100 people achieve financial freedom. So if that's something that you're interested in, definitely, you can find me on social media and I'll help you.
And I'm going to link all of your contact information in the show notes so people can reach out to you if they're interested, even if it's just to have a conversation with you because you're so inspiring and so motivating. I feel like
Thank you.
even
I
everything
appreciate it.
you've said here, I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna go for it. Let's do it. Like I'm
Yeah.
leaving now and I'm like, yes, let's do all the things. Let's
Yeah.
go.
That's good.
Yes. So thank you so much for being here, for being such an inspiration, for sharing your story and your vulnerability and your learnings and your teachings with everybody. I really, truly appreciate it. You're such a fascinating human being, and thank you for everything you do.
Thank you. Thank you very much for inviting me, Sabrina. It's been fantastic.